Hello. I'm happy to be standing here, blessed with this opportunity to bring you this show. What is Real Talk? Real Talk is a platform that has been created to talk with everyday people about real life challenges, relatable topics, soul-stirring conversations, edgy conversations, thought-provoking conversations. Welcome to Real Talk, and I'm your host, Michelle McClain. Today, our topic is, how do we keep our Black men alive? So I'm blessed today to have some friends with me. We have Samir, we have Philip, we have Lincoln, we have Love, and we have retired Lieutenant Pierre with us. The first question that comes to my mind, given the social injustice that's going on, how do you, as Black men in America, deal with your fear on a daily basis of being Black in America? How does it affect you, and how do you deal with it? And I'll start from this end. Samir, coming right down.
For me personally, I don't think I necessarily have a fear of being a Black man in America. I haven't been faced with most of these issues that we have seen on TV. I haven't really experienced it personally. But, but I think there are things there that I'm aware of, like, how we, that issue is there. And it's in my mind that, certain things I can't do. For example, if I get pulled over by a police officer, I try to take precautions because I don't want to be another statistic on TV. So, there are things there that, have that in the back of your mind to say, hey, those issues are there and I'm aware of them, and, I approach those things cautiously and, just to keep myself alive. But I wouldn't really say it's a fear that in that sense of me being scared every day to walk out my door or anything like that.
Philip, what is your fear?
Yeah, I agree with Samir. I'm not necessarily fearful of what basically I see transpire. You started off the conversation by talking about the backdrop with George Floyd and what transpired. It heightened everybody's sensitivity about the issue of racism in America, and it did for me as well. And so with that, like Samir said, I live in a gated community, so I don't deal with a lot of the issues that others might face, but I'm cognizant of what they deal with on a daily basis and how I adjust my life now accordingly. That particular incident changed the landscape of the entire world, and it also changed my perspective on what's happening in America. And as such, there are little things that I do in my life differently to ensure, or not necessarily to ensure, but to adjust to what's happening in America. So while I don't live with fear, I live with a certain level of understanding and of what's transpiring, and I live my life on awareness. Yes, correct.
Lincoln, what is your
Yeah, I'm along the lines with my brothers over here. I've never been faced with a particular circumstance where I was fearful for my life, but I'm mindful of the way I need to carry myself or behave myself in certain situations, so I don't escalate situations to a level where my life could be in danger. So it's just knowing that the responses that someone else might get to a certain action is not the same response that I would receive. So I just have to carry myself accordingly, knowing that.
Evan? Love? Your
Uh,
fear?
well, I can't change the color of my skin, obviously, and it comes with the territory. But I am aware, and I've dealt with a lot of situations, and I deal with things accordingly. So the fear aspect, yes, is there. But to say I live in fear, I'm probably the last person that does, because again, I live by faith, not by fear. But I do understand and see it very much, especially in our community, with the people that I talk to and the young black men or women that I mentor. So I do see it, but for me, it's a little different. You guys are gonna hear a lot
We
more.
go along.
Yes,
As we
why
go
it's so
along.
different.
And Pierre, I know that you are a retired New York lieutenant, and I would love to hear from you both sides, being a black man in America and being on the opposite side, a retired police officer. What is your fear personally, individually, and also what fear based on being on the other side?
Okay, to answer that question, I would first say that I don't have, like the other panelists, I don't necessarily have a fear, but I do have an awareness. And my awareness is more directed not so much for myself because I'm comfortable around other officers. I know the lingo, I know the language, I know how to comport myself. So my awareness is much different, I think. But where my fear perhaps comes from, or what I'm fearful for, or as a black man in America, as a father of a young adult, of two young adults, but particularly my son, I'm more aware. I'm certainly concerned with that. But my fear is actually more of, I want to say, comes from not physical danger for myself, but mostly being financially stable and leaving a legacy, because I think that's some of the things that we as black men, as black women in America, I think those are just as challenging as physical dangers because of systemic racism and everything else that we're faced with.
So we're going to come back to the financial aspect of the program, but let's just visit the fear again. Let's talk about some personal experiences that some of you may have had in terms of being fearful as a black man in America. Is there anyone with an experience that they'd like to share regarding what they've experienced, whether it's with a police officer or someone else in terms of that?
Well, I'll share one. Um, I grew up in the inner city, and there is a glass ceiling. It's basically you're supposed to act a certain way, walk a certain way, talk a certain way. I'm not Black American. I'm Haitian, but coming here realizing that I wasn't accepted by the Black American community, and the other side of it was just like, no, you belong over there. So I ended up facing it on both ends, and watching just stereotypical stuff take place. So you have this mindset, all right, if I get pulled over, what am I supposed to do? So society, TV tells you, be afraid. My first encounter with a police officer, I was actually coming from the movies, and I didn't have that fear. But he treated me as such. I had just purchased a motorcycle, and I was bright out, bushy tail. Helmet, pads. If I had knee pads, it would have been in there. And there was another set of bikes that was there, and when we took off, they left, excessively left. And the cops started chasing them, and he got behind me and pulled me over. So I put my signal on, I put my kickstand on, and I went to put the bike in park, and he already jumped up on me. He was already on my back. And he reached over to turn off the ignition. I'm just like, what's going on? And he's tugging at me already. And he grabs me, he throws me on the hood. Again, this is first time. This is new for me. I'm not sure what's happening. And I'm in full gear. And he throws me on his hot hood. And he proceeds in attempting to put handcuffs on me. I'm just like, okay, what did I do wrong at this particular moment? He's not saying anything. He holsters his firearm, and he's putting handcuffs on me. Another patrol unit comes, and they put me in handcuffs. And I'm asking him, like, what did I do? He said, you were going to run. I pulled over. He's like, no, you're just like them. But I pulled over. And the other police officer, I asked her, I was like, why is he so upset? And she's like, follow his instructions. Okay, but he's not telling me anything. He just keeps me in handcuffs, and he tells me that I'm going to pay for all of them. I'm like, I don't even know them. But he still felt like I should have paid the price for whatever it is that they did. I didn't have my license on me because I just came from the movie, so my wife had my license. And this was just like within seconds, like 10 minutes apart from where they turned, I turned, and I pulled over thinking nothing of it. So he ended up towing my motorcycle, detained me, took me to, again, he still didn't tell me why all of this was happening. So that was my first initial contact with that. And it was aggressive. So psychologically, mentally, like I had to deal with that. So I'm sitting,
Process it.
yes. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, why am I here? Like, I'm not XYZ of what society has portrayed us to be. I just came from the movies with my family. Right? There was nothing that I was doing wrong. Everything is completely legit. Why am I here? And at the end of it, nothing took place. He gave me not having a motorcycle endorsement. That was the only thing that he had to say that he was going to charge me, which is a citation. So I felt that type of bigotry that aggressive bigotry from a citation. I think from there it changed my perspective on just the individual aspect. It wasn't just police officer per se, but it made me just be more aware of the situation.
Well, for me, I would say that it wasn't with a police officer, but I shared earlier. It was, again, from the Caribbean, from Jamaica, and living here 10 years now. And I've always heard my friends who I met here talk about racism. And, sometimes you live a sheltered life and you see it on the news, you hear about it, but when it actually, to Love's point, when it actually hits home, when you actually experience it, that's when it hits home. And in that moment, your financial status, your educational status, whether you're married, single, or whatever it is that you have, your job titles didn't matter in that moment. And for me, that's what happened one day. My friend and I were branch managers. We went to downtown Fort Lauderdale, and my manager, we had finished work, and so my manager said, hey, let's go dine in a restaurant downtown Fort Lauderdale. And as we went in, she went ahead of us, and then we joined her later on. The restaurant manager saw us come in, and as soon as we walked up, he said, we're full. When we looked in there, the place was empty. There's nobody there. It was on a Sunday, I believe, as well. It was empty, and he did not know that we were going to be there to join our branch manager, my manager at that time. And he looked at us. We're black, and whatever profile, we fit a particular profile that says, these people ought not to be in my institution. And we told our manager what transpired and that we're not going to stay. That was my first time experiencing what I've heard a lot of Americans talk about they've experienced, whether by a police officer or whether going to a restaurant or whatever it is. That's my first time, and I can't tell you how I feel because it still impacts me today. I walked out of that restaurant and I cried tears. Went into my car and I called one of my good friends who is kind of one of my mentors, and he walked me through it. We prayed through it. But up to this day, it still impacts me. It lets you know that what love is talking about is that it doesn't matter where you're from, your financial status, your education, your religion, whatever it is. The fact of the matter is that all they saw were two black men coming into that institution.
And in that moment, how does it make you feel? How do you process feeling devalued? How do you process feeling, how do you process being mischaracterized in that moment? How do you deal with that?
Well, it was extremely challenging. Extremely challenging. Dealing with the fact that another man was doing that to me, and hearing myself like saying like I can't believe this is happening that very moment. And we don't have a support base to actually talk this through because we're expected to be warriors at all ends, no matter what. And I have a great deal of respect for everyone and the things that they do. But at that very moment, you just feel like, damn, like, really? This is what's happening to me right now?
It takes away that enthusiasm. It takes the wind out of you, correct. Let's talk a little bit about the financial aspect that you mentioned earlier. Do you feel as a black man in America that you have access to all the financial opportunities here in America? Do you feel you have access to financial growth, career growth? How do you feel about that?
I think we do, as black men have. We all do have that access to the financial growth. It's just a lot of us don't know about it or how to even go after that, what aspect to take, how we're not well educated or versed on building ourselves up financially. A lot of us as, come from, the Caribbean, we grow up, no one really there teaches you about financial growth, how to sustain yourself for time to come, as Mr. Pierre said, build a legacy for you and your kids to come. A lot of us as black people don't know how to do that. It's just kind of like a one-time thing. We make it, but it doesn't carry on, for generations to come. And it's just like, it stops. So, I think that's one of the biggest issues we have, with us as black people. It's not that it's not there or we can't make it. It's just we're not very well educated on how to do that and to sustain ourselves for years to come.
And even for those who are educated about it, at times get in that rut, and they have to take accountability and responsibility and learn from it and move on. But Philip, as a bank manager, can you tell us a little bit about what you see in the black community where this is concerned? Do you feel like black men in America have access to those financial opportunities?
I mean, if I were to speak of it from my perspective in my community, I first of all, I do believe that there is clearly systemic racism that exists. There is coming from many years down, this trickle effect that still haunts black people in a lot of communities. In particular, the community that I am privileged, I would say, to work in, because I believe I was placed there to change lives. And so I see the disparity in terms of, I'll give you an example. I hope my bosses are not watching, but the majority of folks who get, for example, overdraft fees are black folks. And sometimes
And that is due to
that is due to the fact, again, not understanding how to manage their monies. not understanding as well. I think Pierre were talking earlier about overspending and not being able to balance their books and so forth. And that's where I come in. We go back to the basics in the community. We foster relationships with local schools and colleges and other institutions to ensure that we go in and we educate our people about how to manage money. That a credit card is not simply something that you spend on something that you don't need, but you spend it so that it can be of something of value. Then that is money that you have to pay back. You see what I'm saying? And so we go in and we educate, because I believe that for to uplift our society, uplift our black folks, we have to go to the grassroots level of educating them and showing them the knowledge of what it means. Are there challenges? Yes. There are insurmountable challenges, I believe, but it starts with us really, really getting in there and fostering relationships. And so I think that's where a lot of our conversation needs to be of, we know that this thing exists. And so, again, as I mentioned, the overdraft fees, yes. So those things, the how to open a bank account, for example, we go into the schools, we're building their curriculum, a financial literacy program, covers building credit, covers open a checking account. Did you really know that for most people in our community, instead of a checking account, for example, they cash their checks, they go to a check cashing store, charge them a high percentage to do it,
And they're losing money. Because
they're losing money.
Some of the money.
And the fact of the matter is that when we put the money in our pockets, what we're going to do, we're going to spend the money. If I got to go to the bank or have a debit card, then it makes a big difference. And so that's where the financial piece needs to come in. But in my personal life as well, I know I'll talk a lot all day, by the way, but in my personal life, I've had many challenges. One thing I would say to any black person out there is, it's not about working harder, it's working smarter.
Absolutely.
And so we've got to learn to work smart, understand the challenges that are there in the workplace. Now, how do I strategically now position myself, having understanding that there are challenges around me, how then do I now fast place myself and position myself to ensure that I'm able? And one thing is that I think for the most part, I've had mentors, I've had people who advise me and stuff like that, and that kind of thing. So I think there are some of the things that we can do to sort of change the landscape of what we have in our financial situation among black people.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I kind of agree with what Philip was saying. It really comes down to education. And on top of education, also having that support system around you of people of like mind who want to, yes, and be productive, so that you can, have someone to lean on. You might have a friend that's more knowledgeable in a certain area. Like, during the pandemic, we've all started talking about stocks, and I have my friend here, Philip, and others who's been able to educate me about that. But I mean, say we had started educating each other about this 5, 6, 10 years ago, the position we'd be in now. So it's having that support system and education that can help. So
Good. I just want to, before I get to you, Love, I just want to say, you are the kind of black man where, of course, would be mischaracterized, right? Tattoo, do-rag, all that stuff. But you have been able to maintain great financial stability. You have a great credit score based on our conversations. And how have you been able to maintain that, given the obstacles, given the challenges of being a black man in America? How have you been able to maintain that?
Well, one thing for me, I'm very competitive, and I guess I like challenges. So I'm typically the one that stands out when it comes to the financial literacy of things. Like my credit score,
You can share it.
across the board
I
is
was proud.
835.
That's pretty good.
Very good. Very good.
I'm about 5 to 8% debt to income ratio. I bought my first home at 22. So, and I didn't have someone teaching me, but the information was there. I've had credit monitoring for 13 years. I can contest, check, verify everything at my fingertips. And I've invested, I've I have stocks, I have bonds. But it wasn't until I got out of that glass ceiling mindset.
Yeah.
Because people tell you, well, you're a trainer. I'm just like, no, I'm a CEO. Like, I own my own company. I have 20 years on my belt. I have 7 different national certifications. I speak 3 languages. I'm very educated, but I like to give people that perception, like, no, don't mess with him. Like, I wear 2 different color shoes, 2 different color socks. I have a 21-year-old that has a full ride to in college. I have a 14-year-old that wants to be an attorney. But people would judge me because of what they see. Absolutely. Until I open my mouth. I've done fundraisers to where I've flown to Haiti and passed out book bags to every children that I can see, just because I wanted to. I've went to my old neighborhoods where I grew up. I did feed the homeless, just because I wanted to. And I realized sometimes people look for applause, they look for gratifications, they look for a barter with the community, like, this is what I'm doing, look at me. It's always been a part of me. So I've stayed the course on being that man on paper, because I'm going to give you something completely different in front of you. And I want you to undermine me. Like I'm a chess player. And I have a T-shirt that I made. It says, earn your crown. And I say that because most men are not meant to be kings, but they will refuse to earn their crown. They expect to have a crown because they're not doing things to fall in line to be a king. So all these things is just, I stay very consistent with the financial aspect of it, knowing that they are going to judge me. I can't change that ticket. But on paper, you can't deny me.
You just stay true to yourself.
I stay true.
True to yourself.
I realized a long time ago that I stopped living for everybody else's expectations. To dress, look the part, talk the part, buy the things that they feel like I should buy to make our relationship better. And I did me.
So he's the epitome of walk softly with a big stick.
Yes.
So what I wanted to say is, as Love was saying, so you can't be an expert in everything, but you should have a working knowledge of everything. You have a driver's license. You should know everything about the roads, all the rules and regulations. You're not going to know every minute detail, but the general way of navigating the streets, you're responsible for that. You have a gun license. You should know how to fire a gun. You know, so if you're a Christian, you should know the Bible, a working knowledge of the Bible. Again, not what the pastor may know, but certainly what every average Christian should know. So I think you have to be a balanced person, so much so with finances in America, because that's, unfortunately, that's, you're gonna live besides God, which is, and by no means am I minimizing God, but apart from God's grace and blessings, you have to have money in your pocket in America, especially as a black man, because you have to be able to sustain your family as the head of the family, as a traditional role as the head of the family. You should be able to sustain, and again, the goal is to, as you hear like these NFL players say, they want their contract money because it's life-changing money. So we need to be able to aspire to we're not going to be multimillionaires in most cases, but we should be able to certainly be able to train our children and certainly leave a legacy when we move on.
So let me just get back to fear based on Pierre's comment for a minute. So the fear of being financially stable, the fear of providing for your family, the fear of being a good father, because the average black man in America is known or called a deadbeat dad. The fear of being a great husband. What about those fears? We're not just talking about the social injustice fear. What about those fears? Do any of you face or think about those?
I could share one. I was 19 when I had my first child. Well, actually, no, I was 19. So I was a child myself, and I felt like I was behind society in the financial aspect of it. Now I have to provide for this little person 100%. Like with no leadership, no support, no help. And that was a fear. That was a fear to know that this little person relied on me for everything. One of the most heartbreaking experience I had was I went to pick up a prescription for my son, and I couldn't pay for it. Like, and the pharmacist was like, "You can get this brand," which was, I guess, is a generic brand of it. Like, and I'm standing there, and it's like it's my truth. Like, look where I'm at, and I can't even do this. So that became something for me. I said I'll never be in that situation again. So my aggression towards taking care of him just went up 10 notch. I had a $100 bill that I put a date on it about 17 years ago that I said it would never be my last $100 bill. And I still carry it with me because from that day forward, it was just a different thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say certainly what you said about the important things, but certainly you want to be a good father. That's important to me. Good husband, and raising our children, basically my children, to be well-rounded individuals, and education is very important. But at the same time, though, I've been alive long enough to know that having a college education doesn't necessarily, or should I say, not college isn't necessarily for everyone. If everyone was meant to be college educated, you wouldn't have tradesmen, you wouldn't have successful tradesmen and plumbers and individual business owners. So, but I think we certainly have to at least start out there with the idea of getting through school, of getting and try college. If you don't like college, then find out what exactly is your goal. Find a goal or what is meant to what you're meant to be. Certainly,
Drive first. You have to have
Right.
the drive first to
Certainly.
find what it is you want to do.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
even if you choose to be a garbage man, be
Right.
the best garbage man you can be.
Certainly.
But you literally just have to move forward and push forward.
Right. And actually, if you speak to, I'm sure if you took a survey of garbage, of sanitation men, policemen, and many people in many other areas, many of them have their degrees. But again, that goes back to what you said. Their passion is, or their drive is, they prefer doing X, Y, Z. But they're educated, and that's what I'm driving at. Is that we need, especially in the Black community, we need to know that we need to be educated. And like I tell my children, I've always told them, I said, I want you to be able to speak to your friends in the everyday vernacular, in the everyday talk, but at the same time, though, you need to be comfortable and have the ability to speak in a boardroom full of executives and be comfortable, 100% comfortable.
Just a little experience based on what he's saying for me. One being a country, first of all, me personally, I have two things going against me from the get-go. One, I'm an immigrant. Second, I'm black. So that's two things going against me.
That's all of us.
Would it be all of us here?
Join the club, okay?
I know. So in some ways, it's kind of like, you're trying to prove yourself more compared to, everybody else. So in tradition, you expect to achieve certain things by a certain age because of what society expects of you at that point in time. Me personally, I moved here when I was 19 years old. For years, I sat in my mom's house. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. I had friends, left, joined the military, bought their first house, married, have kids. I became 19 years old. I was 23 years old, then 24 years old, 25 years old. But I was stuck. We're with a system where, I'm the type of guy, I like to follow the rules. I don't like to get in trouble. I like to have a clean slate, say, hey, I did it the right way. But I felt like, and I tend to want to do things the right way. So with me going through the process of getting, my status here in this country, I decided, hey, I'm doing the right way. I'm not going to try and break any rules. But me as a black man trying to do that, it's like they're fighting against me for doing the right thing. And I have friends that came here after me, did it other ways, and they're living
They're
great.
way above, right.
And one day I got a job, under the table thing, making a little money. My mom was not working. My mom was going to school, and my mom wasn't working, so we had to pay the bills. So I had to do something. I was like, I can't be 23 years old just sitting in my mom's house not even trying to do something. I watch her every day, studying, working hard, try to pick up jobs here and there. I went out, I cleaned the old people's house. I decided I'm not gonna make pride, not make me try to do something. And so I went out there and I did what I had to do to help my mom's out. I was finally able to work legitly. God worked it out in that aspect. I got a job. Couldn't go to school. I couldn't afford it, But I decided to say, hey, listen, I'm not going to use those things as an excuse not to become something. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm not going to think about what everybody else has accomplished and say, hey, this is what I should have at this point in time, at this age, But right now, at where I'm at now in my life compared to then, I'm probably ahead than most of the other people that were already there, But, that's just some of the things, and then I use those experiences and give back. Other young black people that I've met, young black men, it's not about, hey, I reach here, you're not there, so I'm not going to tell you how to get there or educate you how to get there. Remember where I'm coming from. I'm going to show you how to get there too as another black person.
Give back.
You have to give back.
Okay, we're going to take one final comment on this topic.
Yeah, I would say that for me, great stories, by the way. I mean, I'm just here fascinated by them. Tell you, you say you wrote something on a $100 bill. My first job in the U.S., I wrote something down on a piece of paper. That was something about my faith. And I wrote it down while I was in an interview, a reminder that God said he'd never leave me nor forsake me. So my faith sort of has now trumped some of my fears, if you know what I mean. And I think that my faith has become a critical component of my life now. And when I stood in that place that day, and I eventually got that position, I made up my mind. Because you see, what drives us as black men, whether we like it or not, is the fact of what society has also placed on us, that it drives us, right? And that drove me.
And to prove them
and
wrong.
to prove them wrong. But now I'm not trying to prove them wrong anymore. Because see, now it's about my family, and to better society is what we're trying to do as well. And I worked very hard to get where I am today, but I owe that to my God, my faith. And to come full circle, what I want to do now moving forward is to create a legacy for my kids and my wife and society as well. For us as black men, it's what we leave behind us that's going to make a difference. What we do now for the generation. Malika and Mikhail, they're in a good place. Sonia's a good place right now. God has blessed us. We're in a good place. But it's what we leave with them, not in the tangible things only. But Pierre talked about it earlier, what we put in their minds about that, for somehow, some way, somehow, in spite of all the challenges that we face in this great country, it still remains the greatest country in the world.
Yes.
And couple that with your faith as well in life, because I teach them that also, that there's fear, but fear doesn't cripple one. Fear drives you to something greater than your fear. And so when that drives you to what's greater than your fear, That's what I want to put in my kids, that you can be anything that you want to be, because guess what?
You can.
Daddy did it.
You can. You can.
I've always told my kids they are my greatest gift to this world.
Yeah.
All my children are, both of my kids, their name is Love as well. So they bring joy to it. And I watch them grow like with such amazement, knowing that 20 years ago I couldn't have that same perspective, that same vision. My son, he's so giving and thoughtful, and so is my daughter. Like, she's like the apple of my eye. So my legacy is them.
Yep.
They are my greatest gift to this world. And I say that with pride, and they know it. To my son, I'm his number one fan, and my daughter, she's my little doodle bug. So it is challenging knowing that this world may not accept them with how I've given them to this world, but I'm so proud to know that I have those two to change the world.
That's good.
With
That's
things.
good. And I'm sure we have tons of fathers and husbands like you all. My next question would be, as black men in America, do you feel pressure? Do you feel pressure professionally? Do you feel pressured financially? We talked about accessing the financial opportunities by being responsible. But do you feel pressure? Is there pressure on you as a black man in America to obtain those things? Do you feel pressured professionally to make it at your job, to be at a certain level? Do you feel pressured to live in a certain home or live in a certain community? Do you feel pressure? Is there pressure on you as a black man? And you are a black man married with no children. So
Yes.
is there,
Yet.
do you, yes. So
Not yet,
do you
not yet.
feel pressured to obtain those things or to walk that road?
I feel like society does place pressure on us, and sometimes I guess the disservice we do to ourselves is getting caught up in that. And I feel like once you free yourself of that kind of mindset and want to move more to just want to bettering yourself for yourself and your family, and wanting to do what's best to provide for me, for my wife, or I have my mother and the rest of my family. Just wanting to be the best person that I can be, and ignoring whatever external pressure that may come. I feel like it kind of frees you to be able to, now focus yourself on achieving those goals that you've placed for yourself. Because, like, giving into the pressure that society places on you, it's only something that will cripple you. You have to be able to transform that into motivation, and so it can propel you to become as great as, God has, placed in you. Because we all have greatness in us. It's just in different areas. And it's just allowing, like my brother Philip said, like moving with faith and allowing him to direct your path. But you still have to do something with the talents he gives you. You can't hide it you can't dig it in a hole and just leave it there. You have to do something with it and work hard and be motivated so that he can help you to obtain what he has for you. And I feel like that's how I try to approach my life. I try to, just continue to press and continue to push, surround myself with good people, and do what I think is best or what I feel will be the best for my family. And
Does anyone else? I'll take one more comment on
If I could just say,
pressure.
as far as pressure is concerned, like Lincoln was saying, there are certain things in this life that come naturally, that the pressure comes naturally, but to be overwhelmed, not that you said that, but to be overwhelmed, I think, or anytime myself, I feel pressure, I think about God. I think that God God sustains me. God will take care of me. God will not give me anything that I cannot handle.
Right.
I mean, and Solomon said what the lilies of the valley, or even the birds of the air, they don't worry about where they're getting food.
Yeah.
You know, because
It's a sure thing.
it's a sure thing. God will take care of them. And so anytime I feel pressure to get to a certain point, I think about that. I think about God's word, where He says, you know, I don't want to be, never want to be to the point where I'm too rich where I don't think about you, and I don't want to be poor to where I'm cursing you either. So just put me right in the middle, and I'll be content. And again,
That's good.
if there's any doubts that
Good.
come my way, I think about God, and I know God will take care of me.
That's good. That's good. I know you had something quick to say.
Quick to say.
Yes.
Pressure is definitely.
That's the pressure.
Yes, pressure is definitely on us. As a small business owner, there is a lot of pressure. There's a social pressure. People would look at my car and they think that's success, and they walk into my business. They're like, "Oh yeah, it's nice," you know, yeah. And I'm like, your mindset is in the vehicle. Like you really think that is where my success lies, not the business that got me the vehicle.
Right.
So it's that type of pressure that they want to see you look like you're winning. I've survived 9 years on my own. You know, the first year, all they talked about was, oh, you gotta get past the first year. Oh, you gotta get past the first year. What are you gonna do? So yeah, there was a lot of pressure. And then all my neighbors, I think I'm one of 2 units that are minorities in that whole complex. So there's that pressure, especially being in the forefront of where I'm at. So yeah, there is a lot of.
Michelle, if I could just say something quickly.
Yes,
I
yes,
think
absolutely.
and the whole aspect of being black and the pressure that we face and we deal with, we talked about earlier that we definitely face a lot of challenges in corporate America. And one of the things that I try to ensure that we have in our home is that as a black person, having a wife and kids, my home has to be my stability.
Absolutely.
Has to be my rock, my foundation, my peace, because this life comes with a lot of pressure. And so when I deal with all the stuff out there, all the noise and the expectations placed on me, because my job is very strenuous, that's why I don't return some of your calls, sorry. But the fact of the matter is that when I get home, I praise God for my wife and my kids, where I go home and I feel safe there. You know, I feel protected there. I feel like that's my castle that I have that God's blessed me with. So the pressure is out there, but thank God that there's a place that we can go to and retreat and find comfort and solace.
We all need to have that, not just the black men, right? But we all need to have that. Our homes need to be the sanctuary where we can have peace. So I have 2 final questions. My next question to you would be, as black men in America, on a whole, men are known to compartmentalize their feelings, their fears, regarding many topics, whether it be on love or family or friendship or faith or whatever it is. So I guess my question would be, how do you process, how do you compartmentalize, and how do you discuss? Do you have a group where you get together and you talk about things and issues to get it out? And how do you deal with the everyday thing as men with men? How do you deal with it?
Men with men.
You don't. You don't. You don't.
I feel like that's something that we need to probably do a better job at. We had something here at our church a couple years ago called Man Talk, but it's just like what you described. It's a place where we can all come together as men and just speak freely. You know, there are no women there, no kind of like barbershop type kind of talking.
Because Lincoln, when you think about it, we're covering all these topics. We're covering the fears. We're covering the financial pressure.
You channel those.
Right, the professional pressure. we're talking about you being husbands. We're talking about you being fathers. We're talking about you being, all these things mischaracterized as a black man. So when you're on your own, that's a lot to take in.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So do you just compartmentalize and lock it away, or how do you deal with it together as a group or individually?
I feel like it's good to have that, like Philip gave, like your home being a retreat. And one thing that I've noticed I haven't been married too long, but I've noticed that at the beginning of our relationship, we've been together for a long time, but at the beginning of our relationship, I wasn't the first person to share my feelings. Like, I keep it in, and I noticed that also would create a wall even between, myself and my wife. And it's not when, you get to that level of, comfort and safety where you can be vulnerable in front of that person, where like you grow even closer to them. And, that helps a lot in terms of, having that mental stability as well. There's some levels of compartmentalizing I feel like is good, like separating work from home so that when you get home, you're not bringing your work trouble home, so that you can have that separation and be like, okay, I can be myself, I can relax, I can, sit here, drink my cold drink and, not alcoholic, non-alcoholic. Let me make sure I say that. Watch my game, watch shows with my wife that we watch together and just be able to relax and like decompress and just, let things go so that you can move on for the next day.
Because I was doing some research for the show, and I read that, especially during the pandemic, that black men are now seeking a lot of mental health. They're going to therapists, and they're getting their feelings out because it's so much to deal with, especially, George Floyd incident. It awakens a lot of emotions in a lot of men. So I'm going back to the question, and I'm asking each of you, how do you deal with it?
You're asking a very uncomfortable question. Even right now, you can see the
Absolutely.
responses makes us very uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
But it's okay to be uncomfortable because I'll share a quick story. I can recall the day when we saw the video on TV, and that particular return to work, the Monday, I think it happened on a weekend or so, and I was returning to work on Monday, and I said to Sonia, and I'm being very serious, I said, Sonia, based on what the reaction of my bosses will perhaps determine whether I stay with that company or not. I took this thing so serious that I was like, I would not work for an organization or institution does not honor and respect what the issues that black people deal with on a daily basis. And when I went to work, as God would have it, because God knows I need that job, he said, my boss looked at me and, we had a conference meeting that day, and she said, today is not a normal day. We're not going to talk about numbers. We're going to talk about the issue at hand. The compassion and the empathy. Not being able to walk. She said, we can't walk in your shoe. We don't know what you're going through. What I've been doing in my job is I've become part of diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. So I'm having those conversations on a daily basis. I think we're seeing a shift and a change in what's happening in America today. To Lincoln's point, also, I think we were ducking the question, but I don't think we have this kind of a thing where men get together and talk. We don't have that. So we need to do that.
Absolutely.
Because iron sharpens iron, that kind of thing, and so we don't have that. So we need to develop those things. We need to implement those things, and it comes back full circle where you got me in banking, is business, and the ex-police officer, and different areas that we do business, and we come together and we talk about real issues that plague us. I think when you talk about it, you're able to filter and just to kind of challenge that level of frustration and anger. So that's kind of what we've been doing.
Yeah, and I like that point that he made also, because there's experiences that you've been through. You've been married longer than me. You've been through different experiences, and varies across the board, that if we're vulnerable with each other, we can lend a word of encouragement, to someone that might be going through something.
Let's take Pierre. I'll come back to you. I want to know, again, your questions are always two-part because you're on both sides. So as an individual black man in America, how do you deal with all the pressures of being just that? Financial, being a husband, being a father, all that stuff, as well as on the other side of the coin, how did you, now that you're a retired NYPD lieutenant, how did you deal with the pressure while you were active then? Because I'm sure it's a different kind of pressure when, as an individual, as opposed to the pressure while you were working in it every day, the pressures that came upon you based on that. How did you deal with it, and how do you still deal with it now?
Well, personally, I can't but help first point to God. You know, God is my source, God is my strength. So I have to constantly, and He's my best friend at this point because nothing against my wife or my kids, but growing up in a household where I did not have a father in the home. My father existed. He just existed in another part of the town. I was able to, so I had to lean on God, my mother, to a certain extent, of course. But and that's what drove me. What actually drove me was seeing other successful stories in America, and then biblical stories to a certain extent. I wanted to be a warrior, like David, Pathfinders helped. So there were individuals that I had on the outside who served as sort of mentors to get me where I needed to be. And then moving forward, I as what Philip was saying, and Lincoln was saying, having a group. Now, again, the whole group thing is good, and I think people have to understand that having a group doesn't mean that you're gonna spill your guts to every single person there, to the whole group. But amongst the group, you're gonna find a friend. You're gonna find
you can be vulnerable
that
and
that
honest
right
with.
exactly one-on-one. And what I can't tell my man here, Love, I can tell Philip. What I can't tell Philip, I can tell Lincoln.
Yeah, but just that support. Just to
Right,
have that
exactly.
support.
So with the whole now that we're talking about the George Floyd situation, I think what helped me during my career is knowing that there are good cops there, and all good cops hate bad cops. So when America was angry at the cops, good cops were angry at the bad cop, and that's a continuing thing. Does racism exist? Sure, it exists in every department, just like it exists in every area of life, in every profession. Everyone here can tell you that they've experienced racism, or that maybe not have experienced racism, but they know that racism exists in every profession,
We
including
just saw it firsthand, and it was more profound based on video.
Right,
It's
right.
going on forever.
right, exactly. But pressure. I actually try not. I try not to get pressure. I try not to feel pressured, and when I do, unfortunately, I'm one of the typical man who sits quietly and just thinks about it. But that again, because I didn't have that source as a young man, that's what I do. And then again, I turn to God. So what I teach my son is, and my daughter, is to talk. Let's talk. You can tell me how you're feeling, because there are things that certainly that we as Adventists, or we as just people in America, people in society in general, there are things that I'm going to agree with, I'm not going to agree with as an adult versus what they see. And I said, tell me how you feel, and I'm going to tell you, my answer may still be no, but you're going to know why the answer is no. And I want you to know how I feel. And I'm going to tell you how. And sometimes we're going to have to just agree to disagree, but other times I'll win, other times you'll win. But I think it's a good idea for men and women, but men in particular, since this is what to seek help. If you need help, get help. If you need to talk to someone, and that's one of the good things about the internet. So as a veteran, oftentimes I'll see a post, on a veteran post where it says, "Hey, I need help. Otherwise I'm gonna do something really bad," and within within a minute, I see a follow-up that says, call me. This is my number. I don't know you, but call me. So I think that's something so I think it's a great idea. Even if it's not physically, I think it's a good idea to have groups that you can speak to and talk to and get help with. I hope I didn't say too much, but
No.
okay.
I've always been out of the box. So since sixth grade, I've been writing. I wrote my first traumatizing experience, and it took so much weight off of me. From there, I always had that desire to write my thoughts on paper. I don't keep them. I just express them truthfully. So I realize, yeah, I hold the man card, but I also know what the man card comes with. And most men won't want to be vulnerable to another man in any shape or fashion for whatever reason. One of the things that I did was I learned how to be that person for that individual, and they still keep their man card to themselves. So they don't feel like it was like, I can't believe I just told you that. Now you know this about me. It's more like, man, love, thank you for being that person that I could tell that to. Right. So because I learned how to do that for myself, so what I've done throughout my whole career was listen. To give you guys a small story on that, I had a client that was deaf. And he said something to me that will forever live with me. He said, people have ears, but they don't listen.
Wow.
So that stayed with me.
Right.
To where now I've always been about the people and helping them. But now I started listening more. I started comprehending more and going through all these channels within myself to where, like, if I'm talking to an individual and they're like, man, he's not judging me, I just said this. And he didn't think less of me. And then they come back again.
Right.
So I created that foundation for myself first, and then I create that safe place. Actually, my business is built on that. I'm 98% word of mouth.
Yeah.
I have no social media presence because it doesn't express what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've held a 5-star rating that I'm very proud of since 2012 till today. With
awesome.
People talking about their experience with me and the things that they're going through. No before and after pictures, none. Just really allowing people, because one thing that we can honestly say, we know how to be people to people first. But sometimes people forget that. I could be a man to you first, person, a friend, confidant. I could be that guy that go with you to do the things you need to do. So I could be that person. And a lot of people lost that. So I satisfy a lot of that within myself. And it's giving me an opportunity to do that, to share the platform with other men, other brothers with young teenagers, or like I have a 21-year-old. We talk every day. I could have a 4-hour FaceTime conversation with him, and he's in college. Nothing wrong with that. So I broke a lot of the traditional stereotype, like, because again, like, most men won't cry in the movies. Like, I'm not that guy. I'm in the back like boo-hoo. Like,
Just
But it's refreshing.
Very refreshing.
It's refreshing to know that you can do that. That you can bring yourself.
But if I could just add on to what Love was saying, that's one of the things with my kids. That's what's inspired me. So my experience of growing up in a single home has made me determined to be much better, and best father that I can possibly be in every way. So right, our kids inspire us.
yeah. Okay. No, I was just gonna just kind of add to it. It's for me, it's just it's also what I can share. Like, for example, in my field, so many people come through your hands, and I sat and talked to myself. What am I doing? What's my purpose? Am I making a difference in anybody's life? Do I want to just come to work and then all they remember me for is that, oh yeah, I used to work for you one time, but that's it. No life lesson, no motivation. And I've taken that really seriously, especially because a couple years back, I had this young kid young black kid working for me. He was just 19 years old. And, he had good potential. He comes to work. I mean, it's rare to find a 19-year-old coming to work and do what you want him to do. He just didn't have the right company around him. So, we had an incident at work. He pretty much met an accident with one of the trucks in the back of the building. So, I ended up letting him go. And probably like a month or so after I let him go, he died. And, 19 years old. And then I look back at myself and I'm like, could I have made a difference?
Right.
Did I make an impact on him? Because he would text me. The last text I got from him was, when can I come back? And I was like, not at this time. It's just based on how the situation happened. I couldn't bring him back at the time. And from then, I've always prided myself in anyone that works for me. I don't want to just be another manager to them.
Right.
I want to eventually change their lives for the better. I go to work, I'm like, my job is not to come here and fire you.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to come here to elevate you.
It's nice.
Right.
Well
Not
said.
to work
Yes.
for me for the rest of your life.
Right.
How can you be better? Because they didn't do that for me, I wouldn't be where I'm at. If my managers and my supervisors never did that for me, I wouldn't be where I'm at. So why am I here? I'm here to help you to be a better person. God put me here for a reason.
Right.
And a lot of times we fail to understand, why did God put you here? And with that little thing you do may change everybody's perspective in life. You can't change your world, but it starts there.
True.
Because people don't understand the power, how much power you have when you have people working for you. It's a lot. But they look to you for leadership. They look to you to make decisions. They look to you to, resolve any issues that's going on. They look to you for it. But you also want to teach them how to do it themselves. And say, hey, listen, everybody that I hire, I always tell them, I'm not hiring you to work for me forever. I'm hiring you to elevate yourself.
All right.
And to reach, surpass me. I'm not here to hold you hostage to say, oh, I'm scared to give you this information because I'm scared. I'm not scared to do my job. I'm doing it right. And if you elevate yourself and you grow, I did my job.
Wonderful.
Because then, people don't understand the trickle down information. My boss is gonna look at me and say, man, how come your people are so, every time they look on, they say, I'm gonna choose from you.
That's good.
So they look at you, if you can do that here, what can you do in a bigger place?
That's awesome.
So, that's just kind of how I look at life. And
Well said. Well said.
That's amazing. That's an amazing outlook to have. That's wanting to help others. So as we close, I strategically made, or centerpiece for today, a chess game. Because life is about moves. It's about growth. And I don't play chess, but I do know that it consists of strategic. And so, just looking at the centerpiece, I'm going to ask each one of you, what move did you make in your life to be where you are today as a black man in America, where you are in a safe atmosphere, where you're in a safe home, was anything strategic, like the chess move, about where you are today? Now, I know that you have fears, and I also know that you played safe sometimes. It may not be a direct fear, but what move, or did someone help you make that move to be where you are today, as we prepare to?
Let me get mine out of the way quickly. I know these guys have a lot to say, so let me get mine out of the way. So quickly, again, when I started my career in banking, one of the things that I graduated with an MBA, and I was like, okay, yes, I'm ready for my big position now. But somehow I found myself as a teller working, and I humbled myself. But I thought that, Philip, if you work hard enough, you can achieve something. But hard work must be met with, you got to work hard, but you got to be strategic as well. To your point with chess. So I realized that in my professional life, of course, my faith had to be there. My God is always there for me. But He works through mankind. So I had to find people who could get me to go where I needed to go. You got to have the right attitude. Then you got to surround yourself with good mentors. And you got to surround yourself with good cheerleaders. By that I mean my mentor, hey, I'm stressed on my job. Hey, I need to go. Talk me through it and that kind of thing. And then my cheerleader who would say, oh, there's an assistant manager position. Do you know anybody? Oh, yeah, that guy, Philip. I learned that as I grew in my career, that I had to be strategic in the moves that I made. I learned humility, that it's okay to start out if they ask you to sweep the floor. It's okay, as long as you know where you're going. The goal is what's important. And so, as God would have it, I never skipped any step in my life because he was trying to teach me something at every step in my life. And by surrounding myself with people who could help me get there, I was able to ultimately get there. And I think I sat back the other day and I thought about something, and I'm now a branch manager as a VP of a company. And I look back at my life and I'm like, how did I ever get there? As much as the strategies that we want to make and all that stuff, it's great. But somehow I've put everything that I have in my life on God, and God has been faithful to me from the start to the end. And the other day, I was outside of my bank. It gets really messy. Where I work, you'll understand. It gets really messy. And I took up the broom and I started sweeping. You see, in life, never forget where you're coming from. If I used to sweep when I was a bank teller, I could sweep as a manager. But then I thought to myself, the only difference is I'm sweeping my own place now. See what I'm saying? I'm sweeping my own place now. Because God used people to strategically put me where he needs me to be. And what took me to get there is what's going to take me to stay there. So that's why I'll share with y'all.
Absolutely. That's amazing. That's amazing. Anyone else?
Well, I'll chime in just as far as that board. Not many people will make a strategic move because all the pieces are in the wrong place.
Okay. As I said, it was a centerpiece, and I do not play chess. So, but thank you.
The strategy aspect of it is I am very strategic when it comes to things. I actually live by that board in a lot of different ways in my head. And my strategy was, I realized obesity is like number one, number two issue in America. But everybody has information, but it's still number one, number two. So I
And
learned,
it's more prevalent with black folks.
right,
Oh.
especially in yes, it's top notch. So I've learned how to explain to people and simplify how to help them be healthy versus complicating and creating gimmicks. So the strategy was the population that you guys actually see on the TV, the YouTube, the Instagrams is less than 5% of success. And all the big companies, they know that. That's the reason why they're bigger and bigger now than ever. And obesity has grown because they know that. So for me, my strategy was I'll just tap into the people that needs my help. I'll do it one person at a time.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So you said we all have to answer this question, right?
Really quickly. Really
Okay,
quickly.
so
really
so
quickly.
so I'm not a chess player, but God, as Philip was saying, God directs my path. But the biggest thing for me is move forward at all times. You may have to take a side step, left or right, but you continue to move forward. So when I was a teenager, then I was on the side, didn't know what I was doing. I joined the Marines. When I was done with the Marines, wasn't sure what I was doing. I was paused for a little bit, joined the police force. And I just kept taking exam after exam after exam. So I didn't reach the top, but I reached certainly a level of respect, a level where I attained respect for my peers, for my superiors, and for the people that I commanded in my command. So again, move forward with God's grace and blessings.
That's good. That's because life throws pitfalls at you all the time.
Right.
It's not how you fall, but how you get up.
Yeah, that's true. Harp on what everyone said. You know, God is the main motivation and driving our lives, and you know, we hear about His promises every day. and he's never let us down. And it's just knowing that if we trust in him, we can make it through. And like my brother here, Pierre, said, it's just moving forward. Because when you focus on your problems and you just focus on the problems, you don't go anywhere. So it's just a matter of, all right, you think about the problem and now you think, okay, what can I do to fix this and propel myself past this so that I can, make progress and continue to move. And it's just, that's a great point to make, and that's something that I also find value in. And also just remembering that, I'm not alone. I have a lot of people here who are here for me. I have a lot of people for support, cheerleaders, mentors, and that together, we can all be a level of support for each other.
Awesome. That's great. That's great.
For me, the minute I let go and I said, God, you just take the lead, that's when things started to change for me. My friends can tell you, or, back in the day, my dream for myself is I wanted to join the military and get into law enforcement. That was my goal. Nothing else mattered to me. I didn't see anything else. That's what I wanted. But the minute I let go and said, God, I got to a point in my life where I said, I don't know why there's just this block in my way. I can't accomplish this. You must know why. So I'm just going to let go and let you handle it. And the minute I did that, he put me where I'm at right now, and which I never saw because I was so focused on what I wanted, but wasn't focused so much on what God wanted for me. And, I became successful at it, something I thought I would have never been successful at or even like, but I love what I do. And I thank God for it because I let him take the lead in my life, and I moved forward with him, and I trusted him that, hey, listen, if this is where you're taking me, you're doing it for a reason. There's a lot more behind our story, but we're just gonna keep it short.
Good. That's good. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being on the panel today. It was a very interesting, eye-opening, thought-provoking topic and conversation. I thank you for being very vulnerable and honest in your responses and in sharing. Continue to keep God at the center of your lives. You are amazing black men. You are amazing black men. Amazing. And I truly appreciate you, and I thank you. So until next time, thank you for watching, and let's have some real talk.